Spooky story time. A follower that wants to remain anonymous sent me this story, and we're gonna call it That Wasn't Me. For the sake of the story, we're gonna call her Macy. Macy says that since she was a toddler, her family tells her that they would see her standing in the hallway talking to nobody. She says that she would always see shadows and hear things, so weird things have always happened to her. Macy says that when she was about 8 years old, her mom married a man and they had their first son together. So being a big sister, she was so excited. She says she was kind of like a tiny mom and she would always help her mom with her little brother. She says that they lived in a duplex and it was only a 1-bedroom home, but it was very big and they all shared that 1 bedroom. She had a loft bed with a desk underneath and there was a vanity right across from her with a mirror. One night, her baby brother wakes up crying and she opens her eyes and she kind of looks over to make sure that he's being taken care of, which he was. Mama was already up. She turns to her side, happens to look at the mirror in the vanity, and she sees a shadow standing underneath her loft bed, holding a baby and kind of like rocking it like this. No, ma'am. Freaking out, she clears her eyes, looks at the crib, baby brother's in there, so she's like, okay, cool. Looks over at the mirror and the image is gone. Another night, she's literally in the middle of her sleep and she gets the urge to wake up. She opens her eyes, she looks over, and there the shadow is underneath her loft. She looks, she can see it through the mirror, and she says she can just feel that whatever that was, it was looking right at her. She's like, hell nah, turns over, forces herself to go to sleep. Some time passes and now her mom is pregnant with her little sister. Again, they were living in a 1-bedroom home, so they're kind of forced and they have to move somewhere else because there's no way 5 people are going to fit in one room. She gets sent off to bed early. She doesn't go to sleep because the light is on. Her mom's husband is packing stuff, and in one of those runs, she decides to look and she sees like the top of a little girl's head. No one else sees it, so she kind of just tries to ignore it. She turns around and she's like, all right, I'm going to bed. She ends up moving to her grandparents' house because she starts having issues with her mom's husband. And it's her grandparents, her aunt, who's 1 year younger. If you're Mexican, you already know the vibes, and herself. One day, she walks into their house and she sees that her aunt is kind of peeking at her from the kitchen. Macy's like, okay, weirdo, like, why are you looking at me like that? Her aunt tells her, did you just get here? Macy's like, yeah, I'm just walking in. What's going on? Her aunt is like, I saw you get here earlier. I saw you open the gate and everything, and you just never walked in. Macy's like, impossible. I just got here. I'm just now walking through the door. I don't know what to tell you. Her aunt is freaking out because she's like, I know what I saw. Macy's just reassuring her, like, honey, I just got here. They drop it. A completely different day. Macy is at her house with her boyfriend and her siblings, and they are in her bedroom watching a movie. One of her other aunts was in town visiting, and her aunt walks into the bedroom and she says, please tell me that you just walked into the kitchen. Macy is like, no, I've been in here watching a movie the whole time. Her other aunt is like, Macy, no, I saw you. You were walking out of the kitchen. I was calling for you and you were ignoring me, just walking away from me down the hallway. Macy says that she's always been weirded out about stuff like that because people claim to see her and that's clearly not her, so she has no idea who it is, or what it wants. She ended up moving a little bit after that with her boyfriend, who is now her husband. She does have 2 kids, and she says that, again, she's always seen things. She's always heard things. She's obviously seen shadows, and she doesn't know why. She says the most recent thing is a little bit after she had her second baby, she ran into this weird lady, and she was just looking at her weird and talking to her, and she says that she was gonna. What do you guys think? Personally, I think that Macy might have a gift. She just doesn't know how to, like, maybe open that third eye. And I feel like if she were to really dedicate and learn how to use that, I think she could really see some stuff.
This woman, her name is Annabelle, and she ran a tamale stand for years outside of a Subway in Mexico City. Every day, customers would line up at her stand like, oh my God, she's back, not questioning why her meat is always so tender. Until one day, she runs out of meat and she can't afford to buy more. So instead of going to the store like a normal person, she sees a little girl. And this little girl is lost and she's alone and she's looking for her parents everywhere. And so Annabelle, she lures in with this fake kindness, telling her, hey, let me help you find your parents. But alive, that was a lie. Because she secretly unalives her and uses her body as meat for the next batch of tamales. That little girl was only victim 1 and it never stopped. Over the next few years, she targeted dozens of homeless women with fake promises of food and shelter. At least 50 victims. 50. And nobody noticed because the food was so good, not knowing what they were really eating. That is so disgusting. And the only reason she got caught was because of a gas leak. Neighbors started smelling something really off, but it wasn't the usual tamale steam, so they called the cops. Police walked in and found the bones of a little girl laid out on the floor. Her flesh was completely gone, but her hair was still intact. These officers are horrified. I mean, I wasn't even there and I'm gagging. But after being arrested, Annabelle tried to say that a demon made her do it. She said the first kill was very hard for her, but after that, she just stopped feeling anything. And even telling the police, if it wasn't for that damn gas leak, I would have kept going. She's now serving 25 years in prison. That's it, 25 years for feeding humans to humans. I've seen people get more for stealing, but okay, I guess. Anyways, be a lot more careful around these food carts because you do not know what you're eating. Thank you for still being here with me, and as always, I love you guys. I'll see you in my next video.
In 1999, a woman named Fan Man Yi was in her apartment when she heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, she was met by 3 men and a teenage girl. Before she could react, they forced their way in and kidnapped her. They brought her to their apartment. But this wasn't just any apartment. The entire place was covered in Hello Kitty merchandise. Plush toys, posters, bed sheets. It looked like a child's room hiding something much darker. For nearly a month, Fan was held captive and subjected to horrifying torture. She was beaten with metal bars and burned with hot candle wax until she couldn't walk. She was starved, humiliated, and completely isolated. Eventually, her body gave out. Fan Man Yi died from the abuse. But even in death, the horror continued. Her body was dismembered, and parts of her remains were stuffed inside a large Hello Kitty doll, left to rot, crawling with insects. Weeks later, the teenage girl, overwhelmed with guilt, went to the police. That confession led to the arrest of all 3 men. They were sentenced to life in prison, not for murder, but for manslaughter, since the exact cause of death couldn't be proven. The case became known as the Hello Kitty murder, and it remains one of the most horrifying crimes in Hong Kong's history.
The scariest Mexican children's TV show. It was called El Tesoro del Saber, the treasure of knowledge. Yeah, that old Mexican TV show that taught you about knowledge in history and science with a talking book. But there's a certain episode that horrified many children. There was absolutely no intro, just the book floating in the void. It spoke in a weird glitchy voice saying, "Hola amiguitos, hey friends." But the background wasn't the usual cozy library. It was completely pitch black and the book was floating in the darkness. And behind the book, you can see the children's fainted faces. 6 minutes in, the book starts saying, "Knowledge is forever to those who seek it." Then all of a sudden, the screen starts flashing red. Then it switched into a classroom where kids' eyes are literally just dark holes. And their faces are completely distorted. They're all twitching, staring right into the camera. All of a sudden, it shut down and the episode was nowhere to be found. For those who saw this episode, will never forget it.
Remember how I be telling y'all, if you hear somebody knocking on your door or you hear somebody's voice but no one is home, never open the door? Scary story time. And this story this time is actually not my dad's story, it's my friend's story. She's also Haitian and she wanted to share her story with you guys. So when her family was supposed to come to this country, coming from Haiti, they kept it a secret. And this is actually a common thing because even with me too, when I was coming, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew but me, my dad, and my grandma, and my uncle. And my uncle was a pastor. Well, is a pastor. But the reason for that is people are jealous and people will do anything to stop you from where you need to be. When they see you prospering and it's not them, I've seen it happen so many times in Haiti. Anyway, so that was the case for her and her family. At the time, it was her and her brother. And when I tell y'all, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew they were coming to America but the people living in their house. It was literally top secret, which is why it was shocking to her mom when she got a phone call from a church member. Mind y'all, they weren't even that close. Like that church member, it's not like they were like best friends. It was just somebody they went to church with, and she actually lived very far too. Now, there was this lady that they knew, that everybody knew was a lugau. But it wasn't their business, you feel me? Like that's the lady's problem. That's her, she do her. Anyway, so the mom gets a phone call from the church member, and the church member tells her mom, I had a dream, and I know that you guys are leaving. You guys are going to America, but so-and-so, the lady that's a lugau, does not like that. And she has something planned for y'all so that it does not happen. Mind y'all, they don't even know how the lugau lady found out that they're leaving, but I mean, you know, lugau. The church member tells her from her dream that she was told to tell her mom these instructions. First one is, of course, make sure that nobody else finds out. The second one was there was this uniform they used to wear to church for Saturday services. She tells them to keep that uniform and all of their clothes that they're going to wear until the day that they leave, and make sure that nobody touches those clothes. And the last thing that she told her to do was that the car that was supposed to transport them to the airport, change it. Absolutely change it. So they did all of that. They prayed, they followed directions and stuff like that, and everything worked out well. They got here thinking it was over, but woo, was it far from over.
In 2009, a teenage girl returns home from school and heads straight to her room, quietly closing the door behind her to discuss date plans with her boyfriend over the phone. Before long, a knock interrupts her. Remember to keep the door open, her mother calls from the other side. Annoyed, she rolls her eyes and mutters, whatever, before stomping over and swinging it open. An hour later, her mother calls from the kitchen. Dinner's ready. Still irritated, the girl brushes off the request and opens her laptop to watch a show on Netflix. As the familiar theme song plays, she leans back in her chair and tries to relax. Suddenly, a dinner plate is hurled from the kitchen, crashing onto the hallway floor. The sharp sound jolts the girl as her mother's voice calls out again, this time unnaturally loud and twisted. I said dinner is ready. The girl pauses, glancing down the hallway.
Mom,
She calls out, her voice trembling. No answer. Hesitating, she walks down the hall, her heart racing with each step. As she enters the kitchen, everything seems normal, except for a note left on the counter. She steps closer, and her stomach drops as she reads, Hey sweetie, I got called in for a night shift and won't be home until tomorrow. Call me if you need anything. Love, Mom.